Quite a contest we have on our hands today. It's Bangalore taking on Rajasthan, but it's not just about two franchises going head to head. We have some interesting matchups of players who used to belong to one, now heading to the other. And when they face each other, it should be very, very interesting. They've been good friends. They've played together. They've shared a dressing room. And now maybe one or two of them thought they should still be at their original franchise. And that'll just spice things up for today's contest. Other than the fact that one of the two for sure, the men in pink, are playing outstanding cricket. They're right at the top of the table, and they'll be playing a team who also are at the better half of the table, shall we say. Maybe a quick look at that before we meet our guests. There you see, Rajasthan right on top. Bangalore, well, they've just played 2 games, so 1 win, 1 loss. I'm sure they feel that 1 win and they are back in the top half of the table. Welcome to Cricbuzz Live in the company of Shaun Pollock and Bhattacharjya for what should be an absolutely intriguing clash. Shaun, I know we always talk about matchups between two franchises, sometimes bowler versus batsman, but the matchup between a person who's been in one franchise and now in the other, that should be fun in games.
It is, and you know, there's extra motivation, isn't there? Particularly after you aren't retained. You know, sometimes you just move from one franchise to the other and it's amicable and everything's good. But if you felt like you've put in a good service for that particular franchise and then they don't keep you, it does give you that extra bit of motivation. And I think that'll be the case with a couple of the guys, Chahal in particular. Obviously, I've read what he had to say. He was quite surprised that he wasn't retained. And I was quite surprised, in all honesty, because, I mean, he has been the go-to guy in the middle overs for them. He's done an unbelievable job and held his nerve on a small ground at altitude. And he's been particularly good. So I was a little bit surprised that they didn't go with him. But I think he must be excited a little bit about the bowling lineup he's currently involved with. You know, he's going to be an integral part of it. But he's got Ashwin there and some really good seamers as well. So, yeah, I think he'll be the one to be quietly motivated. And I think he wouldn't mind the matchup of having to go at Virat Kohli in the middle overs.
Well, we'll talk about a few matchups, Joy, but it's not often that we have a topic like that at the very top of the show. We're talking about welcome to the show and who's won the toss. But it just shows it's such an overwhelming topic of discussion. We've put it right on top. Joy, you saw the quote. 2 things stood out for me. The fact that he remains emotionally attached and honest and candid about the fact that they didn't ask me whether I wanted to be retained. They said they'll go for me in the auction.
Yeah, look, that's the point. That what I find really interesting is that Chahal has come out and made this statement. A lot of these statements are made in private and they say that, you know, I really wanted to stay. They didn't talk to me. The fact that he's gone out and put it there in the public view is 2 messages. One is obviously to the coach and the management. Secondly, to a certain extent, whether we like it or not, whether he's saying whether Virat Kohli had some say in it. Because see, remember, his career and Virat's are inextricably put together. When Virat came into the limelight, Chahal really made his debut under Virat. Chahal is really Virat's guy. And there was a period when, as I said, Chahal comes in and Virat goes even on the one-day matches with the 2 leggies. You know, that's a Virat era that we are talking about, the Virat era. And therefore, I'll be really interested to know that when he's having this discussion, is he saying that, okay, the Virat is no longer in charge and this is a decision made by the team? Or is it also an indictment of Virat? I mean, that is the one thing that's not clear to me. But I am actually glad because, I mean, I have too many of these. I'm sick of these world peace question. My previous franchise was very nice and I want to do world peace. And I love everyone in the old franchise. I love everyone in the new franchise. At least somebody in Indian cricket is being honest and said, you know what, I really loved that team. I didn't want to leave it. I was devastated when I left. And I really appreciate the honesty that which he's come with.
Yeah, and I'm sure in a sense, I'm sure the management will also appreciate that he's being frank about it. They are foes right now. It's going to be a cricketing rivalry. And of course, we'd love to see reactions as and when he takes a wicket, particularly if it happens to be that of the man we spoke about. But now that we've got that out of the way for the moment, quick reminder of the toss. Francois du Plessis has won the toss and has asked the men in pink to bat first, something they may not be too upset about when you've been batting well. But nonetheless, Shaun, it is all about chasing, particularly at the Wankhede Stadium.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's obviously dew that sometimes plays its part, but what with the report we've got from the wicket is it looks like a belter, that it's not similar to the ones they've had so far. There's less grass in it. And when you've got a situation like that, then it does seem like it's really going to come on nicely, and that you should be able to just stand and deliver in the second innings. And I think maybe it also goes down to the fact that the RCB probably a little bit undecided in how to approach putting their innings together, and they prefer, the stock standard established total to be on the board and then know how to play accordingly. Because they do have two guys in particular, Kohli and Faf du Plessis are guys who, once they know what the score is, are very good at being able to calculate a run chase, and then they don't take too many risks, and then they can play from there. So I think it suits into their game plan. And also bowling-wise, I haven't been overly impressed with the five that they've put together. Hasaranga had a good game the last time. We've seen some good stuff from Siraj. David Willey's got the potential. Harsha Patel, brilliant tournament last year. But I just feel at this stage of the tournament, it's not at that stage where you can say, listen, we've got this on the board. We trust these guys to be able to defend it. So I just think from a team perspective, it's the right call.
Also, Joy, if you have a look at that side and their performance so far, they're one of those teams where you can't really put a finger on, is it a good start or isn't it a good start yet? We know the likes of Chennai are devastated and the only way is up. But for Bangalore, 1 win, 1 loss, how are they doing? We'll probably know after tonight.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is a bubble team. This is a team that could easily, you wouldn't be surprised if they ended up in the top half. You wouldn't be surprised if they didn't qualify at all, came 8th or 9th. They're just that kind of team, They have players who have potential, but you can't look at them and say that, okay, these guys are definitely going to qualify. And today, they've got 11 very important members of the game, but they have a 12th member who's equally important to them. And that's something called APSA 80, APSA 80. And APSA 80, Shaun, is this, it's a special agricultural spray that you put onto the ground. And basically, that's meant to stop dew. So they'll be really praying that APSA 80 is used properly, because those are the kind of things. Actually, I think
Joy,
Rajasthan will want
APSA 80
it. No, Rajasthan will
for
want
Rajasthan.
it.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
Rajasthan will want it. Actually, yeah, these guys will be hoping APSA 80 doesn't work too much. Actually,
It's the other way around. It's a pink spray tonight.
Yeah,
it's also interesting. They've just gone with the 3 overseas. Am I right? And when I've seen that list.
No, they do. Shafin Rutherford, David Willey, Faf du Plessis, and Manindo Hasaranga.
Okay. I didn't see Rutherford.
But
so
again, a lot of dibbly-dobbly batsmen. If you look at it, Shahbaz Ahmed can bat a bit. Hasaranga can bat a bit. Patel can bat a bit. David Willey can bat more than a bit. But none of these are batsmen. But they have 4 of these guys who are, not mugs with the bat, but neither are they top-order batsmen. So that's interesting, because they have literally 4 top-order batsmen and Shafin Rutherford.
Let's have a look at the men in pink. The only 11 names we'll mention. APSA, did you say? Is that what it stands for?
APSA 80, APSA 80.
APSA, right, APSA, fine. That's what it is. That's the 12th man. We're not putting that on the list for now. For Rajasthan, they'll be desperately hoping that their bowlers get some decent conditions when Bangalore come out to chase. But again, an unchanged 11, 2 unchanged 11s. Certainly, Shaun, for these guys, you wouldn't want to change anything. They've been playing so well. Bowling lineup looks outstanding. And for their sake, we'll hope that they're bowling with a cricket ball and not a bar of soap.
Yeah, I mean, they got all bases covered in that bowling department. I really, really do like the look of it. I think there's wicket taking ability throughout, and that's always key in the T20. If you want to bring the scoring rate down, you want to put teams under pressure, you need to be able to pick up wickets, and there's plenty of that. Left-hand options, the different spinning options, and they must be pinching themselves. I mean, what a fantastic start! 2 from 2, one of the only unbeaten sides. There's just 2 of them there, and their net run rate is brilliant. So they almost need to just run with this momentum, because sometimes in this competition, after 6 or 7 games, because you've done so well, because the momentum is with you, because there's that self-belief, you're basically almost qualified. And then you can even have a hiccup or whatever and limp across the line. But most of the hard work has been done. And I think that's where they're at. And they wouldn't want that bubble to burst. I think, at the top of the order, you saw a fantastic 100 the other day. And they've got some exciting left-hand options as well. So, yeah, I think they're in a good space. And I think this is another big encounter for them, that they're hoping to just keep that all rolling in the right direction.
Yeah. The Chahal factor will come into the game later. or slightly later in the innings. We'd also like to see Devdutt Padikkal as and when that comes into being, because of course he'll be probably up to bat well before Chahal comes into bowl. Let's talk about Mohammad Siraj, because he's been someone who's been, much talked about, Joy, and probably, in your opinion, one of the unexpected retentions.
Unexpected retentions, definitely. I mean, if a Chahal to be not to be retained and Siraj to be retained, is those the kind of things you look at, and Chahal would really ask. And if you go by records, I mean, there is absolutely no comparison. Chahal is again on course to be an IPL great. He's definitely is an IPL great. Siraj is a great bowler, bowls a lot of wicket-taking balls, but he's still work in progress, definitely. I mean, to compare Siraj with Chahal at this point in time, and nor is he. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Siraj at the death at this point in time. Perhaps he'll get much better as time goes on. He's not played that much cricket, but no, for me, as I said, gets some wickets up front. Death, he gets wickets at the death, but 10.07. I mean, he's not exactly the most. I mean, he's not Malinga at the death as yet. And to retain him over somebody like Chahal would be something, obviously, Chahal. Because see, you don't worry about if somebody is retained Gale, AB de Villiers, and Virat Kohli, you're going to turn around and say, you know what, that's fine. But if Siraj is chosen over Chahal, Chahal will think, what was I doing here for the last 6 years?
Yeah, it was a little different from, say, an Umran Malik being retained over a Rashid Khan, because there were many other factors that went into that particular choice at Hyderabad. But Shaun, retention or no retention, if we put that out the window, purely as an assessment, fast bowler to fast bowler, where does Siraj stand for you?
Yeah, I like him. I like what I've seen from him. Obviously in the different arenas, we've seen a lot of him in the international stage, the test matches, the one days. We've seen him here in South Africa. I just think if you have a look at those facts and figures that we just showed there about the power play, the best performance I saw from him was in a match in Abu Dhabi, where he got the ball to swing up front. And you can see he's only just taken the 17 wickets at an average of 34. That's where I feel he could just maybe change his game. The death, I think you get to learn what your options are and you try and improve them as you go along. And sometimes it's on the day that you're effective or not. But I think in general, someone like who else playing this game? Trent Bolt, for example. He's got that ability. He's going to get that stock standard shape into the right-handers, and he got the variation to go across. I just don't think we've seen enough of the away swinger, in fact, from Siraj. And it's not like he doesn't possess it. He's very much a fan now of just trailing the ball back at the right-handers, almost trying to tuck them up. I think he needs to try and get that belief in. If you're working with him, if I was working with him in that camp, I'd say, listen, even if it's just 5 or 6 balls, that first over, go with the intention to try and pick up a wicket. Go for the intention to try and bowl someone out, find the outside edge. There's very few opportunities in the T20 match where you can back yourself, and you've got to have that belief, and you've got the new ball in your hand. Try and use that to advantage, because if you strike for us, that's a fantastic way to get our game started. So I'd like to see. I mean, I've loved what I've seen. I loved his attitude. I like most of what he brings to the party. I just think he needs to have a bit more belief and use that away swing option up front.
Quick follow-up question, Shaun, to that. Where and how would you utilize him when it comes to that power play? Because we've seen a few of the bowlers, be it Numesh Yadav, Mohammad Shami, perform well up front. Perhaps you're tempted to give them an extra over. Would you look to give him 3 if he's performing for you?
100%. If he's going, I'd stick with him. We've seen this. If you have a look at the facts and figures of the back end there, it's not like he is a Malinga, as Joy said. It's not like you can find him as a dependable. It's almost like Shami the other night after he had bowled those brilliant 3. It's not like he's the most gun death bowler that you've ever come across. So, yeah, if he gets a go, and that's what I'm saying, and it'd be interesting to get into his psyche and mindset. As a captain, sometimes you need to go and say, listen, where do you think you can have the biggest impact on this game for us? And he might say, oh, no, if I get an extra one in the power play, I think I can pick up a wicket or create the pressure. And that's sometimes what you do. I mean, just those little conversations with bowlers make them feel, first of all, that they're valued, make them feel, first of all, how they think about their game, and make them feel that they can have an impact. And then once they've taken that decision, once they've made that call and said, oh, I think I can do this, you throw the responsibility in their court. And invariably, guys, once they've backed themselves in front of you, they have to now produce. So that can often be a good thing.
Well, let's see how the South African captain utilizes him in terms of the power play. because they do, of course, have someone like Harshal Patel to come for the bulk of that second 10 overs. For now, we've got a Ask Cricbuzz live question coming in for the day. We had many coming in. We were spoilt for choice, but we've picked this particular one. If allowed a retake, Pankaj, we don't have retakes, but anyway, who should Bangalore retain with their fourth retention? Have we already answered that question, Joy? But actually, he has a good point. If it was Siraj versus Chahal, we know your answer. Let's answer this one. If you had a choice between Padikkal and Chahal, what would it have been? Still Chahal for you?
See, I know that Padikkal has got bad runs for them up front, but see, I'll tell you, one of the problems that Padikkal does have, and that's one reason that they look at him at 3 and 1 a little bit, is once a power play is over, he doesn't seem to get it off the park just as well as he does. He's really good with the power play and when the field is up, but he's not often that good when the power play is gone. So I'd still take Chahal, because Chahal is one of the most reliable bowlers. He's like Rashid Khan. You throw him the ball in an emergency, you're getting whacked, your first 4 overs are going for runs. You might toss it to him in the power play. He can bowl it in the 17th over. He's bowled it in the 17th over, 18th over. So he's a very go-to bowler. And I think that, look at this season again, as this season wears on and spin becomes more and more of a factor, he's going to become even more and more of a factor. And, in grounds like DY Patil, big grounds like that, he's going to be very, very difficult to take out. So my point is that I think they missed a trick, but, different coaches, different mindsets, they might have had something. And see, the other thing is that if they had in their minds that they wanted Hasaranga to start with, then they probably weren't even considering him, because the kind of money they went for Hasaranga, clearly they wanted Hasaranga to start with. It's difficult to play big money for 2 leggies. That's not going to happen that easily.
Fair point.
I just think with Padikkal, an interesting point. When he wasn't retained, I was surprised because I thought he was really good. I've been impressed by what I've seen. And then he obviously goes to Rajasthan and they bat him at 3. And you think to yourself, shame. You do feel for the guy because he's had his success. And as Joy said, I've always seen him as one of those guys who can dominate the top first 6 overs. But like Partheev Patel used to be, pick up the boundaries easily. But then how's he going to develop his game? But I actually think this move is going to be a good thing for him long-term in his career, because now batting at 3, if Jaswal and Butler get off to a good start, he doesn't get in that early. And I think if I look at Indian cricket, I see so much strength in the top 2. I mean, if 5 guys get injured, you've still got 2 guys who are fantastic. But I see that you maybe in the T20 formats and even the one-day formats, 4, 5, and 6, your finishers, your guys who bat well in the middle overs, who learn the art of rotating the strike, picking up boundaries when they're available. I think that's what you don't get festering from the RPL. You got lots of guys at the top smash it in the first power play and having successful tournaments. But I think for him, it's actually not a bad thing. I think from his game development perspective, he's going to have to learn quickly because you don't want to put pressure on yourselves with your strike rate and all those different things. But I just think long term, when I gave it some thought, I thought actually maybe for him individually, if he can stomach it, it might not be a bad thing for his career.
Well, today will be interesting.
Very interesting point, fascinating point. Because I just want to pick it. I was thinking about Shaun. This is an exact problem in Indian football, because I was going through the list of finishers in the IPL, and if you look at it, whether it's Kieran Pollard or whether you're looking at Andre Russell, Kieran Pollard, Tim David, guys who are batting at that 5-6 number. Most of the guys are international guys. Shimron Hetmeyer. So a lot of the guys who are dominating that position are actually international players. There are not that many top-level players except for Warner, not that many Warner Williamson. There aren't too many guys playing the top 3. So you're right, India's really missing quality finishers. And I was just, the analogies in football as well. Indian football, in the ISL, which is played in India, Shaun, the problem is every team has international strikers. So the Indian coach, who's a foreign coach, a gentleman called Steve March, is saying, how do I get a good striker when none of my Indian strikers are first choice strikers for the ISL teams, for the Indian Soccer League teams? All the top strikers are international. And I think you're right. Finishers are something we are not really developing that much, because everyone in India wants to bat top of the order.
Yeah, well, if you look at Pandya and Jadeja, those probably would be your 2. But if you give them a chance, you give Hardik the captaincy, he's up to 4. If you give Jadeja the captaincy, they look to get in a little bit earlier. So, I think the balance, it does become a little bit top heavy with a T20 tournament.
Well, in that latter example, Sean, we have to hope that if you give Jadeja the captaincy, he will push his weight around and say, I'd like to bat up the order. Give me the ball. Give me backward point. But so far, not happening. Let's see if things change in the next game. But let's not get there. It's going to be a long discussion if we do get there. But having a look at that Rajasthan batting, Sean, we've obviously covered Padikkal. Now, the one, perhaps, if you look at an Achilles heel over there, is if all goes well, it's fine. We saw big innings from Butler. We saw Shimron Hetmeyer's in form. But if they lose a couple of wickets in that power play, maybe 3, do they have the kind of fallback that some other teams do?
I don't think they do. When you look at Sani, Chahal, Bolt, and Krishna, like what contributions? I mean, Ashwin, I think he's a guy who can play a role. I think technically he actually has to change a few things if he's looking to be a guy who clears the boundary at the back end. And maybe if he doesn't do that, he has to have a bit of a change of mindset as to where you pick up boundaries. There's a lot of cricketers in the RPL at the back end of innings who don't have to bludgeon it out the ground. Learn the art of walking inside, flipping it past fine leg, giving yourself a little bit of room, knocking it behind square. So he'd be one of those guys. I think with that batting lineup, they are looking for the guys at the top to fire, and if they do, everything will go well. But I would be interested to know what sort of talks have gone in and around Ashwin as to, listen, if you do get there, it's not a case of bludgeoning it. You need to make sure that you're there after 20 overs, and you need to play smartly at the back end, because after you, those 4 that are coming, I'm not sure what we can expect.
And I think that's a clear example of what we saw last night, Joy. Both the teams had an potentially impact batsman coming in at number 8. You had Romario Shepherd for Hyderabad, and you had Jason Holder for Lucknow, both batting at number 8. Now, this Rajasthan team doesn't even come close.
I absolutely agree with you. Totally agree with you. If Rajasthan had been in the same situation yesterday, with that many wickets going down in the power play, there is not a hope they could have made it, because they really, from Riyan Parag onwards, I'm saying Riyan Parag is probably a very talented batsman. Right now, he's an unproven commodity. Ashwin may have 4 test centuries or 5, I think it is now. But yeah, he's not going to bludgeon the ball away, as Sean has said. This is a team that needs its top order to fire. And I have a feeling that this Rajasthan team, because of the way they're structured and they want to keep their 5 bowlers, I think you're going to have a situation where you're going to see the occasional 140, 135 being blown away kind of situation, because your bats are not going to get away with it every day. So you're going to have one of those days when they go down. They've just got to swallow that pill and say that, okay, we've got so much explosiveness up front. It may happen 2 days out of, or 1 day out of 5. That's the day we just have to do what we have to do. I mean, this team doesn't have that many quality all-rounders to make up for that.
Yeah, it's probably
any explanation on Jimmy Neesham? Is he injured or not available? Or
he's very available.
I was just thinking,
he's just busy on Twitter.
Yeah, okay. With the 4th overseas option not being employed, I mean, that's, I suppose, could be the area. But it's funny how you as a coaching staff, though, what you'll probably find is, because you've got a few guys in form at the top of the order, you think, well, let's run with this for now. But the default setting, when they start to maybe have a bit of a lean trot, is, okay, we need to strengthen the batting, need to get the batting lineup a little bit long, and then maybe someone like Asani misses out and Neesham comes in, and then they sort of scramble with his 4 overs and try and get through.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point there to try and look at the balance of that lineup. But for the moment, they'll just be hoping that things keep going. Sanju Samson will play an important role. Given a choice, he'd probably want to push himself further up the order as captain, Joy, but the soft-spoken man, very happy to come in at number 4 after Padikkal, after Jaiswal, and after, of course, the butler.
Yeah, but see, one of the great things about Sanju Samson is he's one of the reasons why they consider him so special is he scores effortlessly no matter what the circumstances are. He's equally aggravating, or used to be much more aggravating before, because he'll get out after that. But he does not have a problem. One of the things that you'll not see with Sanju Samson is he does not get bogged down, because his stroke play is just so his timing is so good that he can almost take you on at any time. So he's not particularly bothered about the field going back, or the first 6 overs and taking advantage of that. That's the greatness of Sanju Samson. That's why they rate him so highly, and that's why everyone is waiting for him to get consistent. And the fact that this guy is not playing for India today is I mean, you look at the kind of form he is in; it's just amazing.
Sorry, I just got distracted for a second. They had a nice close-up of Joss Butler just about to take guard, and Virat Kohli came and whispered something in his ear. So I'd love to be a fly on the wall to see what exactly he said. It was not good evening, but it should be fun there. But quick one, Sean, to finish with. Sanju Samson more likely to have a matchup with someone like a Wanindu Hasaranga, which perhaps numbers 1, 2, and 3 may not unless they're there till later.
Yeah, I mean, they do like to employ Hasaranga once that power play's finished. So there's a chance. And, and sometimes you want that kind of matchup, don't you? You want that kind of role where you've got a guy who's experienced. There we can see his stats is 90 overs, 48 wickets, average strike rate's good, economy good. So, yeah, whether he has that impact tonight, I mean, the first game he didn't. I think RCB are really happy that he bounced back in the last game. I think it's important that he can dictate terms after losing Chahal in the middle overs.
What they will know, and of course the analysts are up to speed on everything, 3 times in 4 innings, Sanju Samson has been dismissed by Wanindu Hasaranga. So that's something that definitely Hasaranga will have in mind, Sanju will have in mind. We all talk about the bowling matchups favouring the bowlers. I'm sure the batting side also get into the head of their own players to try and maybe counter that. For now, when it comes to matchups, Joy, we've had some interesting ones so far, a couple of half volleys, but first classify. We love to classify. Classify your question today. Bouncer, half volley.
This is dedicated to, no, it's not dedicated to anyone. This is test match length. That's all I can say. This is test match length.
All right, go for it. This is the question.
Who were the last pair of brothers to be nominated as Wisden Cricketers of the Year in the same year? Every year they have about 4 or 5 players, normally 5 players who they nominate. Last pair of brothers to be nominated as Wisden Cricketers of the Year. Same year.
I'm glad you stopped when you said dedicated, because I'm fairly certain that dedication would have given something or the other way. We're not saying anything. Hashtag Cricbuzz.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing more to say.
Hashtag nothing more to say, and hashtag Cricbuzz Live. Get your answers back as quickly as possible. If I look into Twitter, I'm sure I'll find the answers already come in, but I won't look at Twitter. Instead, I'll try and focus on a number. Maybe I always wait for everyone else. Maybe I'll just throw in one first and go with something along the lines of what the pitch reporter said and add 10 to it. 170. 170 is an even figure I'm going with. Sean?
177.
All right, 177. Joy, you're the low ball expert.
I'm not the low ball expert today.
You are? Oh, not today. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going 189.
All right, 189. Well done. Viv Richards, England, West Indies, Old Trafford. Oh, yeah. All right. That should be fun. Rajasthan would love you for that. And certainly that would put them well on their way to possibly 3 wins on the trot. Lots to look forward to. It's Rajasthan against Bangalore. Halfway point. Cricbuzz Combox. We'll see how far towards 189 or 170 they've got. And for now, from Shaun Pollock, Joy Bhattacharjya and myself, that's all on Cricbuzz Live.